Now we continue our study in 1 Samuel chapter 24. Can you please turn with me to 1 Samuel chapter 24. Now from this chapter we have seen David's heart, the man after God's own heart, one that is so sensitive to sin, things that people would do and would not have second thoughts about, things that people would do and feel that it's justified. How the world behaves and thinks would tell David, this is fine. Even, in fact, his own soldiers say, this is fine, David. Why are you so upset? But David's heart smote him when he cut off King Saul's robe privily. His sensitivity to the honor of the throne that God set up. David's heart was so sensitive. Are our hearts that sensitive to sin? And then we also saw, well, the comparison between David and King Saul. And we asked ourselves, now, why do you repent or refrain from sin? We see the great difference between the two of them. Now today I want to draw our attention to just one verse. We want to learn as much as possible from this particular chapter, and that is in verse 14. Let me read to you in verse 14. After whom is the king of Israel come out? After whom dost thou pursue? After a dead dog? After a flea? Now this is David's response to King Saul when he, spoke to him about, why are you pursuing me? This is who I am. Now the title today is, now how do you truly view yourself? How do you truly view yourself? This is how David views himself. A dead dog, a flea. Now let us see what we can learn from this. We want to consider, having a humble view of ourselves. We want to consider, why this is important. And also, to consider that this is something that is very counterculture today. By the grace of God, I hope that we'll learn much from this. Now, first and foremost, how did David view himself? Look at how he says about himself in three areas. First, he says, now, after whom dost thou pursue? After a dead dog? Now, what is he saying? He's basically telling King Saul, I am no threat to you. Can a dead dog be a threat to anyone at all? It's dead. It has no abilities. It can't bark, definitely can't bite anymore. All right? It can pursue you. It can do any harm to you. So here is where we see David's view of his own capabilities. His own capabilities. Now, a dead animal, all right? For someone to pass by a dead animal, all right? Maybe they find that it's very disgusting, very dirty, and that is all. No one would think that the dead animal has any capabilities to do anything, let alone inflict any harm. Now, that's the first thing, his capabilities. How do you view your capabilities, dear friend? How do you view your abilities, dear hearer? Now, let us not forget who David was. David, or rather what David has done. David slew Goliath single-handedly. And he was not like a seasoned soldier at that time. He was just a ruddy teenager, a young shepherd boy. No battle experience in the battlefield, but he single-handedly killed the giant Goliath, the seasoned soldier who had impressive weapons, not to talk about his giant stature, that everyone was afraid of. That was David, his abilities. And he also recounted about how he also single-handedly slew the bear and the lion to deliver the sheep from their capture. Here we have someone who, as a teenager, achieved all this. But here he says, I am just a dead dog. That is all. Here is David, who never lost a single battle with the Philistines. Not a single battle thus far. But yet he thinks that he has no abilities. The great general, the great strategist, young man, right? Probably in late teens or early 20s, that's all. Now, if you're such a young person and you've achieved this kind of achievements in society, I think we won't think I am just a dead dog. But this is how David thinks of himself. Now, here is David, who has defeated the Philistines to rescue the people of Keilah. We saw that while he was being pursued by King Saul. In the middle of handling all this, a young man leading just a few hundred motley crew of his to defeat the Philistines. Instead of telling King Saul, do you know who I am, King Saul? Do you know who I defeated? Do you know the battles that I fought? Do you know that while you're pursuing me, I could actually at the same time, fight both ends of the battle and still push the Philistines out of Keilah? Do you know who I am? But instead he says, King of Israel, do you know who I am? I am just a dead dog. Is that how we will view ourselves if we achieve great things? Now, then look at how he says it further. After a flea. Now, he did not stop there. Yes, maybe the dog may not be able to bite you anymore. A flea might be able to, but it will not inflict any harm. It's nothing. And even if it does bite you, you can easily smash it, squash it, kill it. It's weak. It's nothing. That is how David viewed his abilities, his capabilities. Young person, how do you view yourself? Right? We'll come to that a bit more afterwards. Now, what else? Now, the dog. We all know very well. The Jews view the dog as a very despised animal, all right? Despised, and whenever they bring it up as a reference, a dog, they will be referring to it as with contempt, all right? They look down on it contemptuously. And they think that the dog's nature itself is not good. Well, dogs, especially pariah dogs, they subsist living outside the city, eating garbage that they throw out, eating human corpses. That is a dog. Now, David chose those words. I'm a dog, but not just dog, but a dead dog. Less than those contemptible creatures that you see walking around the street. I'm less than that. Well, we see David not only saw his capabilities, that way he saw his worth. The Jews do not see the dogs as animals of worth, all right? Maybe the donkeys, the oxen and all that, they are animals that are useful, but not dogs, no worth. Now here again is David who delivered Israel from the Philistines, when the whole host of the Philistines were as far as your eyes can see. We read about that up the hill, and here's the giant in front. But he was the one that delivered Israel in the most crucial time. But he says, well, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy at all. Now here is David, who songs were written about him, sung at their national celebration. Remember that? In 1 Samuel chapter 18, and the women answered one another as they played and said, Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s. How would you feel if songs are written about you when you're alive, especially? And yet, while they sing, Saul has slain his 10,000s and Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s, he did not come up and say, Saul, do you know what my worth? The country looks at me as someone who slain 10,000s. You only slain thousands. No, he said, I'm just a dead dog, just a flea. Do you think people value fleas? Definitely not, right? No one buy and sell fleas, right? They kill them, they poison them. So his worth. How do you see your own worth? Now I'll come to why it's important for us to understand all this. Now then, look at what he says. Look at verse 14. Verse 14. After whom is the king of Israel come up? After whom is the king of Israel come out? Now he's basically saying this. You are a king. I am nobody. I am nothing. I am so low down in the food chain. I'm totally unworthy. What status do I have that would make a king come out and pursue me? Why am I worthy of any attention? Now, David looked at his status this way. How do you see your worth and your social standing? What is your view about your social standing in society, your status? He said, I don't deserve attention from the king. You are a king. I'm nobody. Why do you degrade yourself? Why do you bring yourself so low as to give this kind of attention to pursue me? I'm not worthy of that kind of attention. Now then, let's see what are the lessons for ourselves. Now we must view ourselves as David viewed himself. Now David, I think if we are honest with ourselves, if we were to compare our achievements, if we have any, our status, our standing, if we have any, if we compare with David, we know that we are nothing, right? Now David at a very young age, what was his status? He was made general of Israel's army after he slew Goliath. At a very young age, that was the kind of position he held. And he married the king's daughter. He was the son-in-law to the king. That was his social status. Are you a royalty's son-in-law, daughter-in-law? Maybe son-in-law and daughter-in-law, or child of some high-ranking officer or rich person in society. Not royalty. Here we have David in that kind of position. Are you leading the country's government, right? Military, chief of staff? No. But here David viewed himself that way. Now when David abased himself, he truly felt that. Please know that. This is not David just pretending to be humble. This is not David just saying things, all right, to get Saul off his back. He truly believed in that. He truly believed in that. Now, that is why he could go through all this. When he felt that I'm nobody, I'm really nothing, you pursue me, all right? It's not worth it, and neither do I feel angry at you because I'm really nobody. Who am I to get upset at you? He just pleaded with King Saul. That is all. He could handle all the ill treatment because that is sincerely and truly how he felt about himself. Do we truly feel that we are truly nothing in terms of our worth, in terms of our status, in terms of our abilities? We're truly nothing. Do you feel that way? Now think about this. You look at how the people of the world behave, all right? And I hope you don't learn that. I'm sure many of you have known this person. I think he's called Usain Bolt or something like that. Some great runner, right? Famous Olympian. Whenever he has a victory, he has certain actions, right? He has certain actions. Then you see children begin to follow it, and then adults begin to do it, and all that, maybe in jest. But that is how the world is, right? There's the pride in themselves. Yes, they achieve something, right? David achieved far greater things than them. But yet David's view of him, his own worth, his own abilities, his own status was, I am a dead dog and a flea, that is all. But the world behaves very differently. You see, sometimes people, like in tennis games, and then they win a point, and then the crowd claps. What do? They do this, clap louder, clap louder. Or they point to themselves and all that. Now, they view themselves. Now, are we like that? Viewing ourselves with, that is my capability. Please cheer, please cheer. In fact, I deserve louder cheer from you. Now, sometimes I think we have become people like that. Right? You may not do all those things, but in your heart, the pride wells up and say, wow, I am somebody. I'm somebody. But here is David. I am nothing and nobody. You know the word G-O-A-T? Goat? Are you a goat? You say, yes, I'm a goat. And once I saw it on this car, goat. They say, why would people call themselves a goat, right? Well, the acronym is greatest of all time, G-O-A-T, greatest of all time. And that's what we do, right? So parents, if you see your child come back with something they write on their pencil box or eraser or their textbook, I'm goat, right? Don't be too happy. Don't think, oh, my child is so humble, right? Not even a sheep. He considers himself a goat. Well, that is what it is, greatest of all time. That's how they think. Has it influenced you as well? Has it changed how you think about yourself? How you feel that you should think about yourself? Now, when you walk around in school, young ones, let me ask you this. Are you like David? You did very well in your tests, in your school. You aced it, right? Your friends didn't do as well. And you know it was a tough test. How do you walk around, how do you strut around in school, in your heart, at least? What goes through your mind? Or maybe you did very well in some competition for your school, and you come to school and then people praise you, and then you start to do this. Yeah, clap, louder, sing your praises louder. Do you do that? Because the world does it, so you think it's funny and you do it. No, you are actually showing, I am proud. Yes, I deserve all this. Please give it to me and more. Do you behave like that? Maybe you were praised by your teacher for something. What goes on in your mind? Are you like David? Well, I'm not that capable. I'm not worthy of praise. I am nobody. Right? King Saul, when he first was asked to be king, remember? They couldn't find him on the day of crowning or ordaining him. They couldn't find him. He went into hiding, right? Now, was that really true humility? It's always questionable. Look at how he behaves now. Maybe he was truly humble at that time. But what has become of him? A totally changed person. Have you become like that as well, child? You were initially humble. Now, what about adults? What about adults? You did well in a project at work, right? There was a big problem that people could not solve. And then you are there to slay the Goliath, and you slayed it. You slew the Goliath, the big problem. How do you feel after that in your heart? Well, nobody could do this but me. Nobody could slay this giant but me, right? Well, I think I deserve to be somebody at work. How do you feel in your heart when you walk around in your workplace? Maybe you saved a project, all right? Do you walk around and feel, I'm the one who saved this company? David could walk around and say, King Saul, I am the one who saved the nation. Don't you know that? Well, maybe you did something, God used you for something in church. Yeah, it did deliver the church from a big problem. Or you finished a big project for the church, all right? Whatever it is. A big activity for the year. How do you feel? If not from me, well, this thing would have gone all wrong, right? You feel all these things in your heart, welling up in your heart. David truly felt, I am a dead dog, a flea, that is all. I never forget, in a heated exchange, disagreement with an elder once, the elder stood up and towered over me and said, do you know who saved this church? I said, I know, but I hope you know. It is God that saved the church. We get used, and then we feel that we are the one, and walk around thinking we are like a godsend. Well, elderlies, what about you? God, by His goodness, gave you a good job, a good career. You achieve much, right? You stay in a nice house, you have nice things in life, and, well, you were somebody in society at that time. And then you walk around, you come to church, or maybe even someone who's working now. You're of certain position in the secular world, in your workplace. And then you walk into church feeling that, my status is not like the rest of you. Just engineers, just teachers, just, I am the CXO of a company, whatever it is. Walking around in your heart. You may not show it out, but in your heart, that is what you feel. Your status, your worth, your abilities. Look, at my age, I already achieved all this. That is who I am. And you feel that, well, the church should use you. The church should give you that kind of position, that kind of honor. David did not feel, I must get this kind of position. I must get that kind of honor. David was also anointed to be king. But all he felt was, I'm a dead dog, a flea. That's all. So seniors, do you walk around feeling that, well, people should treat you differently because of your past achievements and all that, and you constantly walk around talking about your achievements, showing off things, instead of, I'm just a dead dog, a flea. David, in his teenage life, in a very short span, achieved far more for the kingdom of Israel, achieved far more in the place of battle, right? Achieved far more in handling, right, all kinds of problems at a young age compared to any one of us. But yet he says, I'm a dead dog, a flea. That's all. Genuinely believing that, genuinely feeling that. Now, so we really have to ask ourselves, how do we really view ourselves? Young person, adult, how do you feel about yourself? Now then we come to the second part. Now this is something that is very counter-culture, counter-Christian culture, all right? There's something in the world that's very counter-Christian culture. Or I would say that how we should view ourselves at God shows us how David views himself. It's very counter-culture to what is out there in the world. And I want to spend time on that because it's something that you are constantly exposed to. Your child is heavily exposed to. And you better understand this. Now that is the culture of self-esteem. This culture of self-esteem in the world. Here we have God's word painting how David views himself, right? Unworthy, without abilities, lowest social status. But there is this self-esteem philosophy that is pervasive in the world today, that your children are exposed to in curriculums in school, that maybe even you are exposed to in your place of work. In fact, it is so tied to even mental health, right? Self-esteem is a very important thing for mental health. Now, first and foremost, what is this idea of self-esteem? Because in David's case, you look at this, well, David has no self-esteem, right? David, you should have self-esteem. But here it's very clear, David has absolutely no self-esteem at all. You can't say that someone who calls himself a dog, a dead dog and a flea, as someone who has self-esteem. What is this self-esteem thing in the world about that is so counter-Christian culture that is molding you to think very differently. And you better be aware of it. Are you changing? Have you changed? Is your child being changed? Now, the self-esteem culture is so strong that let me just read to you some things from some of our government websites and some mental health websites. Now, basically, to them, self-esteem is about how you view your own worth, your self-worth, right? Your self-worth, and it is how you see certain facts, certain things in your life as truth about yourself. Self-esteem is, the focus is to make you feel that you are somebody. You can, by your own self, achieve things. You should not say that you are of no worth. You are of great worth. Right? So this idea of self-esteem is to boost your sense of self-worth. But when you really think about this, David did not seem to have any sense of self-worth. I mean, it's very clear he had no sense of self-worth. All right? Now, I know what's going through your mind, but please hold that thought as we go through this. Now, in fact, it is so strong. It is part of, school curriculum systems where they teach children, where they have programs, they have workshops, right, that you can sign up for as well, on how to boost your self-esteem. Because there are a few areas that psychologists believe, and maybe you have become, all right, influenced by that, and you say, this whole thing that you've just talked about, David, is wrong. We should not be like that. Because the self-esteem culture today, they say that it is critical for many areas. Having self-esteem, to boost your sense of self-worth, to think highly of yourself, to think highly of your own capabilities. Now, all that is important for personal development. How you are going to grow up, children, is going to be dependent on how you think now about yourself. And you must have very high, healthy self-esteem about yourself. Maybe you get worried, your teacher just said that, and then passes him to say something completely different, right? Be like David. No self-esteem. In fact, they say, childhood, when it comes to childhood, parental feedback, right? Social interaction. Now, all this kind of thing, how it affects your self-esteem. Parents, they tell your children, and maybe you believe that, self-esteem affects academic achievements. Whether your child is trained, is constantly reinforced with the thinking, you must have high self-esteem. They will not do well in school, right? I don't know how many parents, you've come across some of these things that your children bring home from school. So they believe it is instrumental for personal growth. You want to grow up to be someone that will be capable with achievement, you must start from young. Have high self-esteem. Now, the second thing, they say self-esteem is very important for mental health, for resilience, for perseverance, for strength. So they strongly believe that. For healthy relationships, a belief in your own ability, equipping yourself with self-esteem, they say, is crucial in maintaining mental health and forming healthy relations. Now, do you believe it is true? Do you believe that it is true? Think about David. Think about David. David from his childhood, do you think he's someone that has high self-esteem? And then now in his young adult life, in his early 20s, someone with high self-esteem, and therefore he could achieve much. He had good mental health. David very honestly said, I'm just a dog, a dead dog and a flea. But David achieved much. David accomplished much. Did David have a mental health breakdown? Let me ask you. No. Right? He was troubled. He was pursued because he was troubled because he was pursued, but he did not have a mental health breakdown. He prayed to God constantly. We covered some of those psalms that he prayed. He had very clear mind. He knew what to pray for. He knew how to respond. Over here, do you see him breaking down and going crazy? No, he spoke with great clarity of mind. He reasoned with Saul with great clarity of mind about the situation. He was very articulate. He did not have a mental health breakdown and could not speak. So do you believe God, or you do believe what the world says? That if you don't have high self-esteem, if you call yourself a dog, a dead dog and a flea, you are going to have mental health problems. You are not going to be achieving anything in your life. Is it true? Absolutely not. They believe very strongly, the world's philosophy believes very strongly that self-esteem has a great influence on your career success as well. David's career as a military man was unparalleled, all right, at his age. So do you think so? But David really felt, I'm just a dead dog and a flea. No one achieved the kind of military achievements as David as a king, even later on. So parents, if you begin to think, maybe the world is right, go back to this passage. Go back to this passage. In fact, God willing, we'll study why. Why is it that when we think like David, it will be opposite to what the world says in terms of achievements, in terms of mental health, and so on, all right? Now, but we move further on. Now, the belief that unless you go to work, step into office, and tell yourself, I can do it, I can do this, I'm capable, I can achieve, you are going to fail at work. David said, I'm a dead dog and a flea. But he constantly won battles. Like I mentioned earlier on, under the worst stress, being pursued by King Saul, and yet needing to take care of a whole bunch of people that came up to him, please be our leader. And at the same time, Keilah is being attacked by the Philistines, and it was a walled city with iron bars. Now, David can't be facing any worse stress than anyone of us. But his mental health was very intact. And did he not win the battle and the battles? Absolutely. Absolutely. So do not fall into this thinking that I must walk into school, walk into the workplace, or start my day at work at home with all this high self-esteem. Otherwise, I can't bake that cake, right? I can't cook that dish. It's going to fail. Right? I have confidence in myself. I can do this, and mutter under your own breath. And children, when you go to school, I can do this, I can ace this, and keep muttering that. You know, I've said this many times. One of the ways that they train sportsmen is to get them to visualize in their mind, I can do this, and visualize themselves running around that curve and how they will overtake people. I can do this. That is my abilities. Those are my abilities. This is what I can do. And just imagine, and eventually it will come true. All right? Mental conditioning, to think very highly of yourself, that I can do this. Now, that is how the world thinks. Well, they also say, if you want to have a better outcome in life, grow old with a better outcome, all right, through your career to have a better outcome, self-esteem is crucial, all right? Self-esteem is crucial. In fact, they say that, you know, the difference between people who have low self-esteem and high self-esteem is, well, those with high self-esteem, they complete what they start, all right? They pursue with perseverance what they want to do. They set goals. But those people with low self-esteem, well, you know, they leave things halfway. They are they are not motivated. Maybe parents, you begin to worry. Say, my child better have high self-esteem. I better train it to have high self-esteem. Looks like maybe the world is right, you know. And my child is basically not motivated. Not finishing what he or she begins. All right? Very scattered mind. Oh, I better boost the child's self-esteem, because that is what the world's psychologists, the world's philosophy tells me. That is what I must do. Now, let us separate these things. Look at David. Do you think David was very disorganized? Do you think David don't finish what he began? When he began to pursue to fight the Philistines in Keilah, he did not go there, fight halfway, and say, I think let's forget it. I'm not interested anymore. Let's go home, soldiers. No, he finished the job. David, who all the while believed that he's a dead dog and a flea, did he walk up to Goliath and halfway say, I think I'm not interested in fighting Goliath anymore, or I think I can't do it, so was he like that? David, when he was being pursued, was he lazy? No, he planned, he strategized, he looked after his people. He brought them to different places to find food. He kept thinking of how to take care of them. He took care of his parents, his siblings, whom he was worried about, that King Saul would kill them. He thought through all these things, and he made sure he took care of things. But he was a young person. A young person. Now, friends, do not fall into this thinking that if I do not have self-esteem, I will fail. I will be scatterminded. I will not have perseverance. Parents, please separate, or adults, please separate laziness. Please separate lack of diligence from all this. It's a lack of diligence. It has nothing to do with self-esteem. David thought very lowly of himself. He abased himself. But it did not affect the way he works. Separate them. The world tells you that and then you believe it. It could be that you are simply lazy, a procrastinator. Don't begin to think, I think I need to have higher self-esteem, then I will be an achiever. Then I will persevere. David persevered. He was, I think by all counts, any one of us, if we are going through what he was going through, I think most of us would have just thrown our hands, forget this. Forget it. Right? Forget it. He did not. He did not give up. Now, maybe some of you begin to think, Pastor, please don't say these kind of things to my children. We've been trying to build their self-esteem. You know, my child went to school, and then the friends make fun of him and say, you are this and that. Oh, you're stupid. You're incapable, and you're going to fail. Or you're not able to join the school team because you have two right hand or two right foot or however they say it. Or you're going to fail. And we've been trying to build up his self-esteem. Why do you say that? Now everything is going to crash again. Now, do you believe that? Because the world tells you that. Now, remember David. When the father said, please bring this ration to your brothers in the battlefield. Right? He brought them to the battlefield. Now, by the way, David, who thinks that he is a dog and a flea, before he went there, he took care of all the sheep. He made sure, the Bible very clearly reveals, he made sure that people he were assigned to take care of the sheep. Do you think someone who thinks that he's a dog and a dead dog and a flea is someone who is scatterbrained and will not finish what he does? No, not at all. It's contrary to biblical thinking. But the world's psychology would say otherwise. Now then when he reached the battlefield, what did the brothers say? The brothers made fun of him. The brothers called him names. They say, who are you, you little youngest brother? You want to be part of the battle? You're not going to be able to fight like us. They thumbed him down. Did it make him feel that I'm a failure? Did it make him feel that now, therefore, I'm nobody, and then I just go home and hide under the sheep? Did that happen? No, immediately after that, he went ahead to slay Goliath courageously, alone. So we think that the world psychologies are correct. If you do not boost your children's thinking, you don't boost their self-esteem, well, they are going to fail. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not for a moment saying that you go and abuse your child emotionally and call them names and call them stupid, all right? I'm not saying that for a moment. You should know what I mean. But what we see in scriptures, a person who have a self-abasing thinking of himself does not mean that he will be a failure, does not mean that he cannot achieve anything, does not mean that, he's going to be weak, and all these things will come true about him. It is not true at all from scriptures. Here is a very clear example. Now then the question is this. Well, what's the difference then? What is the difference? Now the difference is this. The unbelievers of the world have no God in their lives. They have no one to turn to. They have nothing to turn to. So in their minds they think, now if we are incapable, what should we do? Boost your self-esteem. So they turn to self. Now, the reality is both. Whether you're a believer or an unbeliever, we are truly nothing. That's the reality. We can do nothing without God. God's common grace, God's special grace to the believers, we can do nothing. I hope you understand, right? Unbelievers, they can achieve much, all right? They are under common grace. They are given abilities by God, by His common grace to all. They can study. They can become high-ranking officers in companies, in government. They can invent amazing things and all that. They can. Common grace, that is what it is. So likewise for the Christian, all right? Now, God's solution is for us in knowing and admitting that we are truly nothing before Him, then to turn to Him. That is the difference. But the world psychologists want you to adopt their ways and turn to yourself. That is the difference. God, in making the child realize and admit that I am nothing, I have no capabilities, I am worthless, which is the truth, and the child will turn to the living God. See how David handles things. Please look at chapter 24, all right? I know we are covering just one verse, but look at chapter 24. Look at how David dealt with things. Now look at chapter 24, verse 12. Now it says, the Lord judge between me and thee, the Lord avenge me of thee, but my hand shall not be upon thee. Now look at verse 15. He said this before, he said, I'm a dead dog. Now after he said, I'm a dead dog and a flea, what did he say? Verse 15. The Lord therefore be judge and judge between me and thee, and see and plead my cause, and deliver me out of thine hand. Now, what was David's thinking process? I am a dead dog, I'm a flea. No, I need to boost my self-esteem now to do something. No, he turned to God. He knew that he could not deliver himself. Although from experience, he knew that he could slay Goliath single-handedly. But yet he would say, God will deliver me out of your hand. See, David, the difference is David did not have self-esteem, but he had God esteem. And that's the big difference. We must not fall into this philosophical idea, self-esteem is the strength that I need. No, it's God esteem is the strength that I need. How did David put it? The Lord judge between me and thee. The Lord avenge me. And then the Lord plead my cause. The Lord deliver me. Constantly the Lord, the Lord, the Lord. I know while I was speaking, you probably think, but if we really think that way of ourselves, we really won't be able to do anything. Now, the understanding the Christian myself is, this is how I am truly seen by God. That is what I truly am. And because of that, I learn to depend on God. I learn to lean upon Him totally, because I'm worthless, I'm without strength, I'm nobody. But God is everything. I depend on Him. The realization, in fact, the more you realize that you are nothing, the more you will depend on God. That is why David was successful. David was not successful because he thought that I'm nothing and now I must boost my self-esteem. The opposite would have happened. That was King Saul. After some time, he felt that I'm the one who win the battles. I'm the one who run the country. I am. And then now he begins to depend on himself. No more God. Disaster awaits. Now, what is the danger when you begin to think that self-esteem is what will get you somewhere in life? You will begin to, take things into your own hand, use the common grace, common abilities that God gives to you, common gifts that God gives to you, and you will pursue things that are outside God's will. That is what self-esteem does. I want to pursue this. I want to become this and that in society. I want to achieve this and that in school. I do not care if it is God's will for me to pursue this course. I do not care if it is God's will for me to be in this line of work, to be in this company, to achieve this or that. I don't care. All I know is self-esteem can get me there. That is the danger of thinking like the world. But when you have no self-esteem, when you really esteem yourself as God esteems you, what will happen? I need to depend on God. I need to turn to God. It is the Lord, it is the Lord, it is the Lord that will help me, that will deliver me, that will enable me. Then what will happen next? You have to find out if it is God's will. Because if this thing is not God's will, whatever boosting I have of my self-esteem, I cannot ask God to answer that prayer. And I will eventually walk into God's chastative will. You see, when you have no self-esteem, you cling to God in everything in life. And when you cling to God in everything in life, then you will always ask, God, I know that if it is not your will, I am going to fail. But if it is your will, like David, it is God's will for him to be king. David knew he will be, we studied that, right? He'll be immortal until God wants him to die. He'll be untouchable until God wants him to be touched. David knew that because he knew he was in God's will. He had self-esteem and boosted his self-esteem. Self-esteem is a dangerous thing, my friend. It leads to pride. It leads to pride, which leads to self-will. Many of Christians fall into walking into God's chastative will in marriage, in jobs, in choices of things in life. It's because of that. I think I know what to do, and I will do it. Because I think if I think long enough that I can do it, I will be able to do it. Instead of, God, what is your will? If it's your will, I know I will have your protection. God esteem. God can definitely enable you. No matter how difficult, how scary, He will. Now that is the big difference between self-esteem and God esteem. Because now ultimately, remember this. Self-esteem very often stems from insecurity. You know insecurity? You feel very insecure. So you must keep boosting your self-esteem. You keep feeling like basically King Saul. He was someone who constantly needed to boost his ego. That is what self-esteem is about. Boost your own ego. Remind yourself. What did he do? His battle with the enemies. The Bible tells us, well, he went to build a memorial for himself, right? When Samuel went to look for him, where's Saul? Oh, back home. What was he doing there? Building a memorial to boost his self-esteem. Instead of knowing that it is God who gave me this victory, no, I must boost my self-esteem. To build a memorial so that I will always remember Saul is the one who killed these people. Self-esteem, boosting self-esteem is actually trying to handle your insecurities and make you trust yourself more. You would do all these kind of things. And after that, when Samuel found Saul, what was he doing? Well, the king, Agag, was with him, not dead, not killed as God commanded. Why? He brought him back to parade like the rest of the world's kings, to parade the enemy king in chains caught by me. Right? He constantly needed self-esteem boosting, assuring himself, this is me, this is what I did. And I must show people that I can do it. That is self-esteem, boosting of self-esteem. And he constantly needed the reassurance from his people. He constantly kept thinking, you all do not like me, right? We read, you all do not like me. You all like David. You took David's side. And my son, even my son does not like me. My son took David's side. And constantly say, are you on my side? Are you on my side? When he thinks that people are on his side, he's very happy. Constantly needing to boost his self-esteem. Then doing very embarrassing things, dishonorable as a king. He constantly needed reassurances that people are for him. People like him. You see, when you are someone who thinks that I need self-esteem, you will keep seeking people's approval. You will keep seeking, you will be very concerned with how people view you. David did not care if people viewed him as a dog, a dead dog. You know, David was standing there with his men. He did not use nice words about himself. He said, well, my men are with me now. I better not, call myself dog when the Jews look down on dog. David simply said, I'm a dead dog. Just when they were shocked enough, they would say, I'm a flea. Say, what? The flea on the dead dog? That's worse. David had no need to keep seeking, all right, approval of people. Is your child like that? Constantly feeling that needs this reassurance. Now, if you keep thinking, I need to boost, you will run into a problem. Your child will grow up to be like King Saul. Are you like that? You will grow up to be like King Saul. Everywhere you go, you politic because you have to make yourself somewhere in front in the company. Because you need that boosting, that reassurance. You constantly act in ways that will be unchristian, like King Saul. It's a very dangerous thing. Insecurity stems from pride. It's the opposite. Insecurity, needing my self-esteem to be boosted, is simply this. I want people to think well of me. I want even myself to think well of me. I cannot take failure. I cannot accept that. What will people think of me? Now, there's insecurity. You constantly need people around you, right? Like King Saul. Your life will become like that. Now, if you see someone who always tries to pull you to them, always must have a group of people around him or her, this person has an insecurity problem. I cannot be alone. I see someone else talking to someone else, I get jealous. That's King Saul. So when you begin to understand all this, then you begin to realize the one thing that my child needs, the one thing that I need as an adult, as a senior, is not boosting self-esteem. It's boosting God esteem. And the more you boost God esteem, the more you esteem God as He is, the more you will see that I am truly nothing. David really saw himself as nothing because of that. He saw God for who He is. David did not need to boost his self-esteem. All he needed was God, and then he knew, as long as I'm walking in God's will, I'm doing what God intends for me to do, I don't need to boost my self-esteem because God will be with me and that is all I need. People who need to boost their self-esteem, well, if you're a Christian, very often it's because in your heart you know God is not with you. So now you need to turn to yourself. I can do this. I can make it. They interviewed someone and asked, what is your idea of self-esteem? Or lack of self-esteem? Now, this person basically said that, well, I tell myself I'm fat, I'm not cut out for this, so what's the point? I'm fat, I'm not cut out for this, so what's the point? Right? So they interviewed someone. So they said, you see, when you don't have self-esteem, you will give up. That is how it is. But I hope you see by now David said worse things about himself, but he did not say, I'm not cut out for this. David continued to live on. David did not say, in fact, one of the things that they say, if you don't have self-esteem, a dangerous mental health problem can take over. You might commit suicide. You might commit suicide. That's why people say, the world is better off without me, because they have low or no self-esteem. So as parents, you worry. As an individual, you worry. Now, is it true? Did David, who says worse things than this girl who said, I'm fat, I'm useless, I'm not cut out for this, the world is better off without me, David said worse things about that to himself, about himself. Did he want to commit suicide? No, he fought. He persisted. He did not give up. He did not say, I may as well fall on my own sword, which King Saul did. He did not say, King Saul, just kill me now, get it over with. The world is better without me. I'm just a dead dog and a flea. No. He persevered. Why? Because he had God esteem. He knew he was in God's will. That is very important to remember. Now, maybe you're someone who feels that, I'm a self-made man. Everything that I achieve in life is because of my hard work. That is why you do not feel that you need God. That is why you do not feel that you need to turn to God. Because you feel in your self-esteem, I'm somebody. In fact, God should accept me into heaven because I'm somebody in this world. But know this, in God's eye, the God that created this entire universe just by speaking it into existence, the universe that the greatest scientist's mind put together throughout mankind's history, still cannot fathom or figure out. But God just spoke them into existence. In the sight of this infinite God, you are truly a dead dog, a flea, a sinner. And you need Him. The only way you can have your sins forgiven and be in His presence for eternity is only through Jesus Christ, the infinite one, who paid the infinite price to save you. You cannot boost your own thinking, your own self-esteem, and think that you can work your way to heaven. I hope that if you've been hearing the gospel many times, you will turn to Him today and begin to realize who you are in the eyes of the living God. Maybe in the eyes of society, you are someone great. But the greatest minds, the greatest achiever in this world, when they leave this world, if they do not have Christ, they are also in hell now. That is the truth. Now, not boosting self-esteem is not about beating yourself up. Please know the difference. It's not about beating myself up and then give up. It is not that. This passage shows it very clearly. David did not try to boost his self-esteem. Neither was he beating himself up and say, the big difference is someone beat himself up. I'm nobody, I'm nothing, I'm useless, I'm not cut out for this. The world is better off without me. It's just beating himself up and say, then I might as well die. This is not what we're talking about. This is simply saying, God, I know who I am really before you. And he tells people, King Saul, I am nothing. Although I'm also have been anointed to be king, but I'm really nothing. I'm not here to challenge your throne because I know I am nothing. It is someone who truly acknowledges who he is before God's eye, and then having God esteem. That is what it is. Now there's a hymn, "May the mind of Christ, my Savior." One of the phrases basically says, him exalting, self-abasing. This is the victory. Christian, we need to move away from this mumbo-jumbo of the world psychology of boosting self-esteem. The hymn writers understood it. What is victory? Him exalting, self-abasing. God willing, next week, we'll see why this self-abasing is so important and how to have it. Shall we rise to sing the closing hymn? Now, I've changed the closing hymn to 362. 362. Shall we rise? 362. Shall we rise? 362. May the mind of Christ, my Savior.